This podcast is supported by Siemens, your partner for industrial-grade AI.
Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of our Industrial AI podcast. My name is Robert Weber and it's a pleasure to talk to
Peter Sieber. Good morning, Robert. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, wherever you are.
Peter. Good morning. Greetings to Munich. Are you still snowed up in Munich?
Yeah, I live close to the train track here, south of Munich, and it's amazing. I was passing it yesterday. There's like, a half a meter to a meter snow on the track. So you and I are going to be in Ludwigsburg tomorrow.
Yes, I hope you get out of the town tomorrow. Yeah.
The plan. Normally, I would have just gotten up early, as I always do. But in this case, I'll make sure that I'm going to try to get there already today on the Monday. Yeah.
Yeah, we will be at Mann and Hummel for our AI event in the canteen. And I'm really looking forward because the topic is LLMs and why they don't help us everywhere. And I'm already looking forward to the discussions after our presentation because that's the most interesting part. Because then two representatives from the company come on stage and we will have a discussion. So I'm really looking forward. I'm really looking forward to meet you again, Peter, face to face. Last time in this year, I think.
Is it the last time? Yeah, maybe. Well, who knows? Who knows what's going to come in? Short notice. But looking forward to as well, yeah.
Yeah, but let's start with the news part, Peter, because you have a long main part with falconry. So let's start with the news part.
Yeah, well, I'll chat quickly about that at the end. I saw Stefan Sulak, co-founder, CEO of Renumix. You know him. They build AI-based assistants for engineering, manufacturing. He's been at our podcast. Those listeners, it's been a little while back. He joined us at Arberg, AI in the Woods. Is that how we called it?
Forest, Peter.
Oh, Forest. There you go. I wasn't sure.
Robin Hood or what? Robin Hood in the Woods. No, it's Forest.
Correct me wherever necessary. And he has built an industrial AI canvas, to share with any of you listeners. Now, based on the philosophy, I'm not sure that you're aware, listeners are aware, just very quickly, original business model canvas has, I think, 9 so-called building blocks. They were initially proposed 2005. So what is that? 20 years back, Alexander Osterwalder. And so on this canvas, big piece of paper or small, PowerPoint, Word, whatever you do. And 2 of those blocks he has passed on. So he also looks at value proposition and resources there on there. But then he has, of course, very specific industrial. So he looks at one block as data curation or data sources. And, so you can imagine, right? It's not a general business canvas. It's specifically for industrial AI. And then I started thinking, I've worked with this as well. And yes, I did. So I went back a couple of years. This is, I was getting close towards the 10 years, right? Industrial Data Intelligence, still a wonderful name that we chose as our startup. And I'm not going to go into the details because I guess it's still, kind of internal, maybe copyrighted. But we did look at that time, key partners, the cost structure, the revenue streams. It's all these wonderful, very important elements that you, as the originator, you need to start thinking about, and maybe you want to write them down. You want to write them down, then do it in a canvas. And we had, for example, value proposition. I'm going to share those with you. So we had number 1, on-site, inside. Think about that, 10 years ago. Anomalies for OEE improvements in production real time. And we also had plug-and-play edge analytics for OPC-UA information models 10 years back.
Wow, Peter.
But this is not about now, but the idea is, so I did recall that we used the canvas as well, yeah.
Is it available online?
Yeah, right. Yeah, he just has it online as a link. You can download it, and I'm sure that Stefan is very happy to help you as well. I mean, he says download the canvas to map out the solution, and then out of it you can distill this, minimum viable product. We talked about that as well.
Yeah.
With Christian. It's already a couple of years back, I believe, that we did. You can do that, in a day or a week or whatever, and I'm sure, as I said, that Stefan is very happy to help you. Now, my experience is, and that is more from my 10 years Intel, in having done so many projects in the business development marketing at a specific moment in time. You cannot sit with colleagues and think about why are we here, what is the project. Number one, you need to know your target audience, what is the objective, etc., etc., etc. So I would say, for those of you listeners that are at the beginning, maybe this is your first industrial AI project, maybe it's your second, for you yourself to have a good feeling and view of what are all the elements that are important to your project, number one. And then number two, with all the people around you in the project, physically or online, you all are going to need to agree on one sheet of paper before you then start doing something. So from that perspective, I think it's a very nice initiative by Stefan.
And Stefan is focused on data-centric approach, right?
Exactly, right. That's what he does at the same time as well. Yeah, right. I mean, I guess that is his main direction, his main approach to industrial AI.
I go on. Perhaps some of you will remember this. NVIDIA announced a few weeks ago a major expansions of two frameworks in the NVIDIA Jetson platform for edge AI and robotics. On one hand, the NVIDIA Isaac ROS robotics framework, and on the other, the NVIDIA Metropolis expansion on Jetson. And they are coming in the next few weeks. And I'm really looking forward, because I mentioned this because I think next week we will have a robotics company which already uses this technology and presented something on the edge, an NVIDIA Jetson platform next to the robotic, next to the PLC of the robot. Very interesting. And yeah, we will have an episode next week on this topic.
Looking forward to. I'm not the specialist, but I do want to share one general thought. I do that every now and then privately as well. Now, I must say, but because it's very important. So as far as my understanding goes, right, and not understanding the details of the Jetson and all the other, although I come here from the microprocessor space, and the time that I was there with this company, I mentioned Intel, of course, they were at that time also the number one graphics chip provider. Although I read that the co-founder of NVIDIA, he did the first, PGA graphics. I mean, nobody has ever heard of it. I was not going to talk about that. I think the main reason I understand that NVIDIA today is representing what? I think I saw something like 90% of the, what is that then? Is that then the machine learning specific high level processes is because of their, I think it's called CUDA, right? So whatever the naming is, and of what you just said, Jetson, CUDA, and all of this is a library. And what I recalled is, again, going back to but it's exactly the same thing. There was this, at that time, and we're now talking probably 1980s something, Seiko, Japanese Seiko, a sister company of the watch company. And they had this huge 20 huge boards of graphics processors. You've never seen something like that. Now, the thing is, and that has not come the number one, but they had a similar thing. So you would just call a circle on the screen by whatever. They had a library of circle, and if you knew how to address a circle, then you would write through an interpreter a circle. Now, I stop here. The point is, I think maybe now 10 years ago, by deciding that they were going to make a library for machine learning calls, and that has become number one. So everybody around the world, you're not addressing at a low level the graphics processor matrix manipulations typically, but at a very high level. And if that is in your system, and I think we had that discussion with a colleague from NVIDIA, it's very difficult to get out, right? You're almost like caught in a positive sense.
Yeah, sure. So, but I think it's very interesting, because last episode we discussed the topic, the gray boxes from the trade fair show by KEBA, by Siemens, by Bosch, by Beckhoff, and now we are already talking about NVIDIA gray boxes for the robotics. So it's very interesting that everybody sells gray boxes. So I read an interesting article. Should we invest more in hardware in the next few years? Because we in the past we were very focused on software investments. Maybe the future is again hardware investments.
Right. And I think these are cycles whenever you look back into the past. And when you're young, you can only look back one cycle of 20 years.
Thank you very much.
When you're older, you can look back 2 or 3 cycles of whatever. It's a sinus. It's a wave going up and down, whatever, 20, 25 years. And I've grown up in the time, around the names of the companies I was with, and typically they would get rid. And let's think of our partner Siemens. It's a great example. They have gotten rid of so many. At some point in time, they were doing cell phones, they were doing the chips, which is now Infineon. Then there's this, and all these separate ones. That's the time that I have kind of grown into Intel, exactly the same. And now, since a couple of years, you see all of these. We talked about it last time as well. You see Microsoft, you see Google, all these huge big tech companies, Amazon, all producing their own chips. Because maybe, because they have a foresight, they look into the future along the lines of what you just said. And then we had COVID, and there was a year or two where the complete global logistics, and then there's politics as well. Where are chips being produced these days? And that is a reason. I think we're in the very middle of that now. It's very weird, or at the very same time, because chip design and manufacturing is not an easy thing to do, right? So. And I think we're going to see a continuation of this approach for the next 5-10 years. And then if 10 years later we're going to be doing whatever number 675 episode of our podcast, we'll then talk about, you see, the first ones are getting out again. They say, Schuster, what is it? Shoemaker, stay with, producing shoes and don't produce chips.
Yeah. And I have one more company to add, because OpenAI signed also a deal to order for 51 million worth neuromorphic AI chips in advance from a startup called Rain AI. So also OpenAI invests a lot of money in this neuromorphic AI chips. Very interesting.
Oh, okay. Okay, so they didn't place an order, but they're investing in the company.
Yeah, and I have the quote from The Wired. Documents show that OpenAI signed a letter of intent to spend 51 million on brain-inspired chips developed by a startup, Rain. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman previously made a personal investment in Rain. I will put the whole article in the show notes and everybody can read this. And we already had an episode on the topic of neuromorphic chips in German, episode number, do you know the number?
No.
155, I think, I hope.
That's probably 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, the complete thing we do is more or less brain inspired. That is the big discussion we see every day, each day, every minute of the day on LinkedIn, I guess, on Twitter, everywhere. With always the one side, more the marketing oriented, and don't take it personal, dear marketeers, always making the link to the brain, brain inspired, whatever. Our machine learning nets are more or less or not is what the people who do nothing else but study our brain say. There is maybe not more than a 1% overlap between the two. So we need to always be careful, I guess. But in the end, I'm sure that they're going to be doing something similar to an NVIDIA. In the end, it's always going to be about matrix manipulation. And all the libraries, which we call, those of you that are the programmers, the coders, and those specific calls. I did the example of the circle, 30 years ago, and today you do whatever. You do a specific algorithm call, looking for whatever, and that call you can give directly to the chip.
But you have already some news, Peter.
Very quickly, Microsoft Ignite. I didn't want to just have that pass by. I hadn't heard of it, but
no.
But if you, dear listener, are somehow on Microsoft and who isn't at the same time, this is not to be like, you have to or whatever, or, Microsoft is great and perfect or whatever. You decide for yourself. But I just want to quickly share it. So there were a couple of announcements, and actually a very good summary was given by Colin Maston, if that I pronounce that correctly. He's the director of research at ARC. I'm going to give a couple of bullet points. Central theme, I think, was democratizing AI with copilots.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it's for me that is the overall theme. And if a little bit later, I didn't know here that they rebranded Bing Chat to Microsoft Copilot. I must say I believe that if you then compare, and when did you last use Robert, Chat GPT to Copilot? I think that's why you see that some professionals have work. I think Copilot is the perfect word for what it is that we're experiencing, all of us. And it doesn't matter if it's ChatGPT or any of the hundreds, if not thousands, of open source and other LLMs. So when did you last use one of those, Robert?
I used ChatGPT on this weekend.
Okay.
So, but I'm not convinced with this Copilot topic. Yes, it's nice, but that Microsoft now builds a product out of it. It's totally fine for me. But what I see or what I hear now, there are people from the companies talk to me and say, "Oh yeah, we have Copilot now. That's our AI strategy."
Oh, right.
That's not the deal. Yeah, that's not the idea to order Copilot. And now you have an AI strategy made by Microsoft for your company.
They should go to Stefan Suvelak's Industrial AI Canvas.
Absolutely.
Well, they can, if that's what their value proposition is, Microsoft Copilot, and leave the rest of the canvas empty.
Yeah, sure.
And maybe that's I think that's what you're saying. Yeah, but my point still is, I think the word is very good, because I think there was a point, that's already a couple of weeks back again, where I used the word in a conversation, and then I really thought of the idea being a pilot, and there is a person sitting next to me who is my co-pilot, or the other way around, doesn't matter. But the idea, and it doesn't matter if that is the pilot in the plane or that is, and I believe actually I had the term already used a year or two before. I think it was about radiology. So the radiologist, and he or she said exactly the same, using, I think it doesn't matter whose technology it was. He said it is like as if I have a colleague sitting next to me.
But the goal of the co-pilot in your plane wants to become a pilot on one day.
Well, yeah, that's the topic that we hear almost every day, which was the reason behind the soap opera 2 weeks ago. But it's a continuation of this almost opera. Maybe we come to it later. But that's of course is not meant to be part of it.
Yeah, sure.
Then they talk about Microsoft Fabric. It's a platform designed to provide a unified data architecture. Then my thought is, what does this mean for OpenCUA? Maybe we're going to discuss it in our OpenCUA podcast. There's Azure Studio, Copilot Studio. Anyway, so Colin concludes that Microsoft's commitment to providing industrial organizations with the tools they need to thrive in the area of AI, quote unquote, which I wasn't that certain. I'm not sure how you felt it the last couple of months, because there were a couple of announcements about Microsoft withdrawing, specifically industrial metaverse, right? Now, having said that, one of the quotes in relation to the Ignite 2023 was an industrial metaverse showcase. So there you go. Take it for what it is. Those of you that know, that have your opinion. And again, this is not about saying that this is all perfect and good. I just wanted to share it. You are very, very welcome to have your own opinion. And if you say, okay, I need to know it because my company is on, then go and have a look for further details.
But first, do the industrial AI canvas.
Yeah, right. Sure. You can. Then I have another article, if I may. There was something about Siemens shared about AI drift being one of the biggest challenges in an AI-powered simulations, specifically where models then extrapolate inaccurately because of the unknown design spaces. And according to Boris Scharanger, he's a senior innovation manager at Siemens Digital Industries, he says it's a nice example of industrial grade in critical simulation runs, which are designed such as the engineers can specify how fast or how precisely to calculate and estimate. So I'm going to be doing an interview with Benam Nouri.
Ah, right.
Yeah, right. You recall Benam, right? He's the AI machine learning team lead, knowledge-based engineering, and he's with Siemens Energy. And you know him, you and I know him because he attended our first AI in the not cloister but monastery in Würzburg, right?
Yeah. I remember. He's a very smart guy, right? He's the brain of simulation and AI at Siemens Energy, yeah. With the big gas turbines, or yeah.
Exactly. I was looking for the term. Yeah. At that time, he represented how he has been using, for all the time their simulation products. But then they have now added, and as what I just said, their AI. Well, I'm not sure they call it co-pilots. We're going to hear what they call it. No, as I said, no, I said I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
But of course, yes, and that's what I'm going to be asking him. That's what I'm, of course, going to be asking him. And I would, but then we'll come back. We'll come back, and you, dear listener, will be able to hear it beginning of the year. And maybe you, Robert, and I will then discuss it if it's one of these where we do the discussion to understand how they are using this tool. In the end, doesn't matter how you call it; it's a tool that in this case the engineer can use. But very interesting, as just Boris just said, then still at the end, the engineer decides. And I guess that's always the same anyway. That's why it's a co-pilot. No, I should use the term here. No, but that's why it's a tool. You, as the engineer in this case, you are going to use this tool and you make the final decision.
Absolutely. On your last news, Peter.
Oh, I still have more. Oh, I'm going to be doing another. I just was going to share that with you as well. I'm going to be doing a second interview this week about the TwinCat chat. There is another topic on large language models into automation with Fabian and with Yannis from Beckhoff. And again, you can listen to that returning from your end of year holidays.
And we will move on to the main part. And you have conducted an interview with Kevin Clark from Falconry, right?
Falconry is being actually acquired by ERP Grant IFS. Those of you who are aware, I was actually aware, but I put them in my brain in a very specific, I think even financially oriented specific area. So so that is then IFS CEO Darren Roos. He was quoted saying that Falconry is unique in the market because its technology is agnostic and it also does not require data scientists. So, dear data scientists listening, don't take it personal. The topic is a very important topic, though, and then I'll finish on this thought, which I hadn't thought before. As we did the Machine Learning Week Europe, that's now 2 weeks back, right? We already talked about it. I did what is that? A discussion round, open table discussion on exactly this topic. And it was called, I already forgot how OpenAI had called it. But in the meantime, it's called Advanced Data Analysis, right? And the topic was, is it a opportunity or a threat, right? Because at the conferences there's like 200 data scientists, mainly number one. So it's less the domain experts, and of course, and the question is for you, dear data scientists, is this a threat for you? And for you, if they would be there, domain experts, are you using this or not? Now, there was not that big interest. People are free to walk around. There's so many things happening all the time. So I can't really share in the end. Well, I can share that the small group of people who were there and who are data scientists were questioning, very, very strongly questioning, the capabilities. Almost like I wasn't sure that they were being honest to themselves. Maybe they're a little bit scared of seeing the capabilities of what is possible.
But I want to come back to Kevin Clark, your interview partner. I had a quick look at the website, and everything was talking about time series data. So it's a lot about time series in this main part.
Yeah, actually, well, that's also because he is, and that's very good call by you. He is a VP time series.
Ah, okay. The VP time series. That's an interesting title, right?
Yeah, VP time series AI. Yeah, but I'm saying it exactly for that reason. That is how important they consider, and I can only confirm that is it exclusively. I need to be careful, but wherever I have been involved, specifically whatever data you get in industry, can I say 100%? That's probably not correct. I mean that depends. But if you talk production, it's probably fair to say whatever data you get is, probably 100% time series. Our production runs on a millisecond, and whatever sensor you have, whatever it's doing, temperature, pressure, whatever is happening, is always on the same clock running deterministically as time series. So it's an interesting perspective. Maybe we don't hear it that much, but whatever data we get is always time series.
Okay, Peter, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. See you in Ludwigsburg at Mann und Hummel. Take the train through the snow and take care of you.
I will certainly do that. Looking forward to see you and looking forward to talk to you, dear listeners, again very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
My name is Peter Seberg, and my guest today is Kevin Clark. He's the VP Time Series AI at Falconry. And Kevin and I are going to talk about the real-world value and impact of AI in the manufacturing space around operational and predictive data. Hello, Kevin.
Good morning, Peter. Good to be here.
Good to have you with us. I saw you did a kickoff presentation, is that right, at the RPM symposium?
I did.
How was it?
I did. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, it's a great event. The RPM stands for Reliability, Process, and Maintenance.
Okay, yeah, I think we're going to maybe talk about that later. I'm not sure how you see it, but when we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, applying AI to manufacturing processes, I assume that we're building them typically on top of, or we're doing it for the reason of, use the words reliability, process, and maintenance. It's not like either or, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's impacting them differently. Yeah, and we can talk about that later as well. But
okay.
Yeah, the way AI is growing up, it's impacting maintenance differently, maybe so than it is reliability.
Very good. Please introduce yourself to our Industrial AI podcast listeners.
Will do. So my name is Kevin Clark. I am Vice President of AI over at Falconry. I spend a lot of time with customers. I spend a lot of time with our partners. I spend a lot of time with our data scientists within Falconry, trying to establish what's best for the market. I come up from being a practitioner, an engineer inside of companies like Caterpillar and Johnson & Johnson. At Johnson & Johnson, I led globally maintenance excellence, also deploying their EAM systems, Maximo, around the world. And so I've been doing this for quite some time. Grew up as a mechanically minded engineer, but then rolled into software and analytics and advanced technologies as my career progressed. And more recently came on with Falconry out of Fortive, which owns companies like Fluke and Tektronix and Accruent and companies that are household names in the asset management space. So, then when I came over to Falconry, I'd been working with Nikunj, their CEO and founder, for quite some time. And we thought it was time to come over.
2-3 interesting things I pick up. You move out of hardware into software. Haven't we all been doing that kind of?
Yeah.
Aren't we continuously doing that? That doesn't mean that we're still going to need ever better hardware, I guess. And then interestingly, the word Tektronix, I think I've been working, that's a long, long time ago with the company. Actually here, well, not with them. I think there were more competition. Was Tektronix in the market of high-level printers as well, maybe, or maybe that's not what you know them for.
Yeah, that's not what I know them for, but yeah, Tektronix is one of those companies that's been around forever in the labs and measuring systems, and so it's always kind of interesting to work around them because their history is so long and so deep.
So you talk with data scientists, with customers, with partners, not necessarily in that order. And we're going to learn from what you learn from them. I think that's very important. So let's talk a little bit more first about your company, Falconry, or should I say IFS? And maybe we do the IFS a bit more in the end. So we're first going to learn about Falconry in the next 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah. So Falconry was a startup about 11 or 12 years ago. And I'd gotten to know Nikunj pretty early in to it. Fortive, the business that owned Fluke and Tektronix and that, invested into Falconry. And so I was a point of contact for Nikunj, I would say probably the last 8 years or so, working side by side with him and helping him to work through products, work through industries and that, and just playing more of, I'd say, an advisor role. And we spent time on panel sessions together and just talking about the AI industry. And really what Nikunj was trying to create at Falconry was something different. AI is a deep analysis solution from Falconry's perspective. But what he wanted to do was to create an AI that everybody could use inside of the industrial space. And that's not easy because what the data scientists do with data is nothing short of amazing at times. And so to hand that kind of data and analysis over to just anybody that really doesn't have that focus was difficult. So he took on a big challenge. He built the company out with that in mind, focusing on the solution more than he actually did focusing on making sales. And while it was tough then, I think it's really paid dividends today in what we have as a product.
It must have been quite a visionary then. I mean, that's kind of, and we're probably going to talk about that later as well. We talk about large language models, Chat GPT, etc., all the other ones. I mean, that's kind of what they are trying to do these days as well, right? So, I mean, making, exactly the capabilities of what until lately has been exclusively available for the data scientists, available to everybody. So I'm looking forward to learning about that a bit more later. What then would you say, is that or is it another one, a USP? What makes then Falconry in the specific business different from if there is any competition?
I mean, we're almost to the point now, Peter, we've watched so many competitors drop out of the industrial space. And it's not an easy place to be. Industrial is large. And really focusing in on what you're trying to accomplish as a product company matters. And you can't tackle from an AI perspective, just because it's so large and can do so many things and has so many capabilities, it becomes a daunting task to try and be everything to industrial. And so you really have to pick your battles, pick your industries, pick the things that you're trying to provide as value. And I think that's where Falconry has been successful, is they picked a couple of key markets, one being the metals industry and two being the Department of Defense and the things that we're doing over there. And they stayed really focused. Now, that wasn't true to begin with. They were trying to tackle every industry and try to be something to everyone because we were really just focused in on assets and the process. And so it just made sense. We should be able to go from industry to industry, no problem. But what Nikunj found out was each industry had its own uniqueness, and an AI that is not just a minor thing, that's a massive thing. And understanding their industry, understanding the types of things that they're looking for in that industry with AI required focus. And so they've done a good job of really narrowing in to focus in on what matters to those industries. And then we can slowly move into other industries as we gain expertise.
It's a typical theme, I would say. Maybe you could call it an issue if you apply data scientists from external, that you, depending on, what their experience is, if they have been trained as data scientists, that maybe they then first need to understand the market that they're working for. And I may then assume, as you say, if you concentrate on a handful, or maybe two, metals, defense, maybe there's 2-3 other ones I see, that you have people that come or that are internal data scientists and that have the knowledge of that market.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the thing that we're finding, so metals is a place that we did extremely well. It's continuous data. It makes sense. And they were in need of this type of assistance. So metals has been a tremendous market for us. But what it's similar to is other businesses inside of like energy, oil and gas, utilities, things of that sort that also have continuous data, that also have similar features that you have inside of metal. So the transition kind of makes sense. And we have other markets popping up, but they may or may not make sense. Discrete manufacturing presents its own challenges when it comes to AI. So that's one that we're starting to work on and finding ways that we can penetrate those markets. But it's been a very pragmatic approach to industries.
Yeah, I've said it a couple of times. Listeners will have heard it that, in a former life, I was a market segment manager, I believe we called myself, and my colleague. And I was doing the discrete and the colleague was doing process, which I believe most of what you do, I think we would have called a process. Very good. So what would be then typical use cases in exactly those industries that you just mentioned?
If you don't mind, I'll dip into the products a little bit too.
Please do.
I don't know if you're going to ask questions about that later, but the products kind of help define the use cases themselves. We have what we call our Falconry patterns, and patterns includes our Workbench and Clue products, more focused on pattern recognition and building models. Then you have our Falconry Insights, which is focused more on anomaly detection. And so we have use cases that include all products. We have use cases that are just patterns. We have use cases that are just insights or anomaly detection. But our use cases are usually focused in on the asset and the processes that surround those assets. And if you're talking about insights, you're talking about learning what's normal inside of that operational data. And once you understand what's normal, then you can start identifying what's abnormal, what doesn't fit. So that's really the focus there. And I think the key thing that's really helping us to get right to the folks on the floor, on the plant floor, is turning that mass amount of data, thousands and up to billions of signals coming into Falconry, turning it into something contextual, something that's understandable at all the different levels, the analysis level, then all the way to the point of where the action needs to happen. And so that most use cases are very similar, but they just different types of data, different types of operations, different types of actions required, and so on and so forth. But that's typically what we would go after in that operational data.
Now, you mentioned a couple of products there. Does that mean that you exclusively, that would be in a positive sense, sell kind of off-the-shelf products? Or would you change them? Would you, start projects for your customers? Or is it a combination of both?
The answer is yes. Yeah, we have products, and that's where we start. That's our foundation. But every single day, we're working on something more specific for a particular customer. Like right now, we're working on something for one customer that will apply to everyone. So we're super excited about it. That, this customer challenged us with it. And so we're going out and we're building that. And we know maybe in 6 months or so, that's going to become a key part of all of our products. So yeah, AI right now, I've said it 100 times, it was new yesterday, it's new today, and it will be new tomorrow. There is no end goal for AI.
Yeah, but nevertheless, interesting that you are at that level. If I go back just a couple of episodes, maybe a couple of months, I mean, you will hear other companies that have chosen very specifically to concentrate almost exclusively on building solutions. And I don't say one is better than the other one. I think it's more like, part of the development cycle. Typically, any new market at the entrance can only be building things. And then at some point in time, a couple of years later, you're going to find out that certain approaches make sense to package them and to sell them. So, and if that's what you say, you're doing it, maybe not exclusively, but it's one thing, maybe you're targeting that. I think that's part of the showing the development of where AI, as you say, it was new, is going to be new in the future as well, but where you are already with selling also products to your customers.
Yeah, I'll make one comment to that. There's a distinct difference, at least today, a distinct difference between hands-on and hands-off AI. And we've got a lot of AI that's being built in the background that nobody ever sees. Just like on the internet, there's a ton of AI, but nobody sees it. We've got a lot of that going on. And Falconry has both, but we're really focused on, from a maintenance and reliability operations standpoint, focused on that hands-on interacting with both man and machine.
Very good. You mentioned you almost warned that if I was going to talk about the topic and going to ask you about Cloud Edge, we could talk for hours. We're not going to do that. Nevertheless, I'm just asking, are your products then available on the cloud, on the edge, in a combination, whatever the customer wants, or do you have a specific approach that you're following there?
Yeah, the answer is yes. Available in all different ways. Of course, we have defense contracts, so those defense contracts require our product to be on site.
Oh, yeah, very good.
And so, we offer all the way from that up far into cloud and edge.
Yeah, I mean, as you are aware, I'm based in the Munich area in Germany as a Dutch guy, it doesn't matter. But the comparison I'm going to make is like we've seen from the beginning, when I was in the middle as a program manager doing this, and that's getting close towards 10 years ago. From the beginning, let's say machine builders or production companies have always said, and the quote, crown jewels is a quote that I have from Intel, where I spend time. But nevertheless, they were saying as much as, my crown jewels do not go into the cloud. And of course, we see huge positive change. But the question is more like, I feel like maybe we talk about international later on, but I don't know if you have a preliminary view on, is that a typical maybe German European thing? And you say where you're working for defense, of course, that's also very typical. Do you see like typical, differences there on a global market?
Yes. I mean, we do see the differences. We'd see particular areas moving faster, particular industries moving faster. We see some that are cloud averse, some that are cloud centric, like everything we do is on the cloud. It's kind of hard these days to break it apart as to which one's cloud, which one's not, as far as regions, because it gets into so many more things as to why or why not. But I would say, I don't know, I've even been challenged in the US. I was going to say US would probably be more inclined to cloud, but we've seen some challenges there too. And you would even think that sometimes in Europe, because of some of the regulations there, that they'd be a bit slow to it. But super fast. That's probably our fastest growing market is Europe. That's a difficult one to answer just because there's so many variables that complicate that assessment.
That's okay. Thank you very much. Let's move into our main theme. So what is the real world value impact of AI in manufacturing, and then specifically around operational predictive data?
Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to start with operational predictive data. That's near and dear to me. I came out of the maintenance space. The one thing I didn't talk about before I had gone to college and gotten educated, I spent 10 years prior to college turning wrenches in maintenance. And so I'm a maintenance true blood.
Hands-on. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hands-on. Right. So I understand the space. And then I went to college and began to learn more about technology and taking it to the next level. And nobody, no means had anticipated ended up in AI. But when you think about the impact here, operational data is that data that is part of my process. So if you know anything about SCADA, MES, and things of that sort, that's typically your operational data, plus other things. There's so many other things that come into play when it comes to operational data. But what we're seeing is companies are so willing to give their operational data to AI, more so than it ever was in any other industry that I was in. Trying to get a hold of that operational data was really, really difficult. But in AI, companies are pretty willing to just say, yeah, tell me what's going on in my operation. That's interesting. To me, it's really interesting that I can see all the things that are going on in an operation. Take, for example, a metals industry and a hot mill line, and I have all the operational data real time. And so I know exactly what's going on with that line all the way from one end to the other. But what's interesting, what we did to ourselves over time is predictive data was shuffled over into another area, not together with operational data. And so from operational data, I can identify anomaly after anomaly after anomaly of things that are potentially going to happen in that system without predictive data. Now, what I need, though, with that operational data is that predictive data that's sitting over in another database someplace, maybe multiple databases. That's one of the things we've done to ourselves, too, is that predictive data is not as consolidated as operational data. And so, just to help clarify, predictive data, at least to me, and this is not always 100% true, is typically your things that are the outside of the asset process. So if I want to monitor an electric motor and I want to put extra sensors on it, I could put vibration analysis on it. I could put temperature. I can do amperage. I can do all kinds of different things. That's typically your predictive data. And that's usually going to some other cloud or some other database someplace and not as accessible as what your operational data is. So when you bring all of that together, what it's doing in a time series, from a time series standpoint, is this telling me what's going on? So if I see that the vibration has changed and I don't know why, it might line up with some anomaly that's starting to show inside of your operational data. That's when the value, that's when the context and the understanding of your process really starts to kick in. And you really start to understand how the exterior or the outside the normal process data is starting to line up with the process data of your line. And that's when you see that moment where people, the first time they see that, they're like, I told you so. Told you so. And it's the coolest thing. And sometimes there's the opposite happens, is like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. You know, they had some preconceived notion for, let's say, years, maybe even decades of why a particular asset was failing. But AI kind of exposes, no, this is what's really happening. You're kind of right, but not really. And so I love the connection between your gut feeling and what AI is beginning to tell you. It's just cool to watch.
Your differentiation of the SCADA MES is, for me, like thinking back, and of course it's out in the field between exactly what we would call process. You know, whatever is process, there's always SCADA, and in discrete there will be typically an MES. What is relatively new to me is your differentiation exactly between the operation and the predictive. So maybe you want to give me, or stay with the example. I believe you said, so we have been having operational data for, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years, I guess, until we still have them, right? And then to stay with your example of now I want to, start measuring the vibration. I put a sensor. That started, whatever, maybe 5 years ago, right? I don't know. And so you are suggesting that there was a different team of people, maybe, where did the IT department rather than the operational department, and that's why they had their own database and they were working separately from the operational data people? Or?
Yeah, and what's crazy about that, Peter, is they may report all up to the same person, but there is a separation out there, and it's not going to be every single organization. Of course, I don't want to keyhole everybody into that same assumption, but often, very, very often, not just rarely, but often, I run into an organization, and I'm with customers constantly. I run into an organization that, just before I start this, I'll tell you, 2 weeks ago, I met somebody that was a reliability leader in a plant. We're working with an operations manager in that same plant. So you got the head of reliability, you got the head of operations, and guess what? They didn't know each other.
Yeah.
Same plant.
Yeah. If my left hand would know what my right hand has done, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that happens typically in bigger organizations, right? Sorry. Yeah.
It was crazy. But anyway, the challenge that we see with organizations is that they have separated it. And part of it is because over the years, we've struggled to get reliability kind of data into a manufacturing network. That was very IT business driven. All it was is for managing their process. So bringing in extra data that maintenance and reliability and maybe manufacturing engineers wanted to understand the health of an asset was treated differently. And what that's done over the years is just created this issue where our reliability and data is one place and our operational data is someplace else. And so nobody really planned for it to happen. It was kind of a, necessary evil. But here we are today. I got 2 places to go get really valuable data.
Right. And does that mean that they need to be brought together to one place, or is it good enough to realize that you need to have both operational and predictive data at least brought together at some point in time? It doesn't have to be physically. That's my question. Are you happy with saying, okay, well, as long as I feed a specific time series algorithm with A and with B, then the algorithm can, find, let's say, the anomalies as an example. Doesn't matter that maybe they are in separate databases?
I'm fine either way. I think we've come to the realization at Falconry, we are the connection for them.
Okay.
We can bring reliability data together with operational data. And if we have 2 connections, that's fine. If we have 1, that's awesome. But we're perfectly happy connecting to multiple data sources. But what we really, really want is both operational and reliability data, because it's just so so much more meaningful.
Okay, having talked about the data, which is the basis for any maintenance, any being able to do any artificial intelligence, so to say, what is then the typical real world value that you are going for? Is it at least, I assume, the OEE, overall equipment efficiency, as what we're talking about? Is that a typical thing that your customers are looking at to increase? And or have you seen, potential to go even beyond? I guess it's asking about what is the status of what it is that your customers are asking you to help them with.
Yeah. First and foremost, just to understand the anomalies inside of their operations. I mean, if you had a most basic reason to bring a falconry in, they need to understand their operation and the data that they're creating. And this one can take you really deep, because I'm a fan of OEE, but I'm also the one that said over the last couple of decades, when it came out, I said it's just a number. It is just a number, right? So if we're 75% OEE today and we're 75% OEE tomorrow, they could mean totally different things, but it's still just a number. The only way you understand what that 75% means in OEE, you have to dig in. You have to go check quality. You have to go check productivity. You have to go check availability. You have to go dig in, because 175% could mean a 180 of what the next 75% means. So anyway, I say that because it's the same in AI. We need to understand it. We can't just wait for that big anomaly to show up. That's going to save me $1 million. So I'm going to go after that anomaly when the other 30 anomalies that you've ignored were telling you something different, or telling you that you need to be aware that there's something going on in your system, right? So anomalies are important, even if we categorize them as a false positive, because you saw the anomaly, but nothing happened. That's a misconception. That is a dangerous assumption. So when you think about OEE, what we're grabbing from operational data impacts every single one of those measures: productivity, quality, and availability.
Very good.
So real quick, the challenge is most organizations haven't got to the point of utilizing AI at the OEE level and measuring that impact, even though it impacts all three. Most of it is, the value is understanding what's in there, analyzing that data to the point of action. What am I going to go do because of this anomaly?
Interesting. You mentioned a number, 75. I guess that's a very good, maybe representative number. Always depends on the industry, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a number typical whereas I know it from more of the discrete market. At that time, I believe that process was at a lower, but I'm not going to give that a value. I'm not going to say that one is better than the other because of specifically what it is that you say. It's a relative percentage of a theoretical number. What is my theoretical? And I'm going to compare it very quickly with a car manufacturer here out of Bavaria, have also huge production capabilities in the United States, I believe. And I do recall when I was there, it's a couple of years ago, I think they told us they had reached, I think it was a number of not just 90, I think it was 99%. And people really didn't understand what that meant. So I think what we suggested at that time was, well, okay, talk to your manager and, he or she should give you a higher goal. And then your OEE comes down, very quickly towards the 1980. So interesting that you say that. I think you want to be able to compare yourself. And if it's within an organization, whatever, as long as you stick to calculating it the same way and you go down from X to X, or you go up, from X to X plus 10%, which means more cars out of your production line, less standstill, etc. I think that's still a useful thing to do. Let's move to the elephant in the room. We mentioned it before. So in how far has the introduction then of ChatGPT, that's almost a year ago now, I can't imagine, and all the other language models, the capabilities you mentioned at the very beginning, your colleague, I believe, Visionary, providing capabilities that until then had only been available to data scientists, make them available to people on, I don't know, maybe on the shop floor. So where do you see where you have been maybe as a company in a certain direction, and now there is more like a general, not yet like a solution, but the approach of the large language models typically is also the democratization of, what until then only the data scientists have been able to do.
Yeah, I love it that you brought ChatGPT up because it's ChatGPT did a lot of things, both positive and negative. The positive, since I'm a marketing sensitive kind of guy, the positive is it exposed AI to a market that really wasn't exposed to it before. Even though AI has been around, we've all been using AI. I don't care if it's Amazon or if it's Google or whatever. We've all been exposed to it for a very long time. You just don't know it. ChatGPT made it so that everybody knows it. And people that never would have dealt with AI directly before downloaded ChatGPT and playing with it. Of course, students were writing papers with it. And I mean, all kinds of crazy different things. But here's a little bit of the, I don't know if I'd call it negative, but the positive is that ChatGPT just totally exposed it. And people were all of a sudden super excited about AI, but then also super scared of AI. And so it was like this play on emotions. But ChatGPT was impactful. The challenge that we have today, though, as a falconry, and I'm sure other AI companies deal with this in some regard too, but the challenge that we have today is shrinking those expectations, right? So ChatGPT makes it so that people can ask ChatGPT anything, and it'll come back with an answer. Of course, they have no idea if it's right or wrong, because they don't know where the data came from. They don't know what ChatGPT biases are. They really don't understand any of that. They just know that they asked the question and then something interesting came back. Wow, I never knew that. That's really cool. So they're finding a whole bunch of things that ChatGPT can do. The challenge that we have is as we go to customers, and now we have this new challenge of in their mind is I can just ask Falconry anything and it'll tell me exactly what my equipment is doing. Well, not exactly. So the big difference is you don't know where the data comes from in ChatGPT, but in Falconry, you know exactly where that data comes from. It's your data. And so if it gives you an answer that's either incorrect or misleading or confusing, you only have one person, one company to blame, and that's yourself. So it's a totally different perspective. It's not just the fact that I can get interesting assessments out of my process, out of my assets. It's now, was it very good? And if it wasn't very good, they now have the power to go fix it so that it is better and improving. But you almost have to lower the expectations, which I hate doing, but you have to get it in the right context of what Falconry AI does for you and your company versus what ChatGPT does in a crazy, massive, wrong or right data perspective.
Right. The topic is hot, where it is very, very important for you, for us, whatever discussions we have in an industrial environment, on one hand, and the same with any of the tens of thousands. Are there so many large language models in the meantime? That's how it feels. So the topic is always the same. If I want to use in a different department, maybe as a company, not the person in maintenance operations that you talk to, but any other person in your own company or in a customer's company, somebody wants to introduce, it's the topic also of, am I going to introduce this OpenAI, Microsoft, whatever it is, and am I going to fine tune it, provide it with my data, and then the topic of cloud and edge. We're not going to talk about that again, but that's very, very important on one hand. And on the other hand, so have you then already been using, can you say, a similar approach as this one to saying, yeah, sure, whatever our applications, you just mentioned them are, they need to be fed with the company data such that then users, not just data scientists, or maybe I'm going to ask you specifically people, I don't know, on the shop floor, they can ask specific things about the shop floor and then they can get an answer?
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, there was a whole bunch of questions inside of that. Here's where I'm going to go with.
I typically do that. Sorry.
Yeah. Here's where I'll go with that. Falconry is designed specifically for assets and processes and identifying those patterns and the anomalies that occur regularly. So right now, our focus is that middle ground of providing the patterns and identifying those patterns, identifying those anomalies so that it gets it into a place and a context that can be understood and analyzed further. We are working on a whole bunch of things on the backside. And this is one thing I'd love to talk about, Peter, is internally, every single week, we have a thing called Tech Talk. And that allows all of our data scientists, our product developers, our engineers to talk about the things they're working on this week. And this is what's always amazing about Tech Talk is there is something, and this defends my it was new yesterday, it's new today, and it'll be new tomorrow. This defends it because every tech talk, every single week, we have something new, like brand new, like probably never done before new. And it's the coolest thing to listen to them talk about AI in a way that may never get out to the general public because it's AI behind the scenes and all the cool things that are happening. The other thing that we do is called a hackathon. And I know lots of companies do them, but we do them internally and challenge them. And then, of course, there's incentives behind that. But these hackathons, just amazing. I can't tell you how many parts of our product were created because of those hackathons internally. We're even thinking about maybe opening it up to be external so we can get maybe some of our customers involved and other things like that. But it's just the power of what's going on behind the scenes is amazing. In the near future, like I'm talking 6 months, maybe 12 months, I don't believe we'll have the capability yet where a technician can go in and ask Falconry a particular question, but that's coming. Same with graphics and videos and everything else inside of a Falconry, inside of the context of industrial. And so all of those things are on the table, but I don't think you'll see the ability to ask a question just yet.
Thank you very much. Tell us a little bit more about Falconry, global organization. You talked about Europe, but that's not the only thing, just in a global market. Where are you? I think we've heard where you're based, your company. You talked about data scientists. Maybe you're looking for people to join you. And if so, what kind of capabilities should they bring?
Sure. Yeah. So Falconry is all over the world. We're in Europe. We're in all of the Americas, North, Central, and South. We're also in APAC. That's the area we haven't grown as fast, but we are moving in that direction. As far as what to bring to this company, I still think we're not necessarily looking for AI engineers. We're looking for people that understand the industries, people that understand the movement of the industries and the fast pace of the industries, and have a broad perspective of what's going on, along with those technical skills to code. And that's a misconception of companies like Falconry. Not everybody's a coder in the company, but most everybody in the company is either focused on industries or focused on technical. I can say that most everybody in the company, we just had this conversation internally this past week, was all the way through marketing. Most of our people are technical. And it's just it's a technical space right now. It's going to get more and more like other industries where you'll start having more industry expertise in that. But we are pretty heavily loaded on the technical side, and rightfully so. I think, as we talked about before, it's new. So we've got a lot of development to do. But that's what I would encourage folks, if they've got that broad spectrum, advanced technologies kind of view of the world, they'd be definitely a good fit at Falcon.
Coming to a close, what you say is the status then of AI in manufacturing in different parts of the world? You just mentioned for you as a company, APAC, United States, China, Europe, and how do you see that's going to change over the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, like I said, it's difficult with the countries. It's even difficult with the industries, identifying which ones. If you're regulated industries, I think AI is going to be super interesting, because one thing about AI is it really helps regulated companies understand how compliant they are, or areas that they need to watch for that are either out of compliance or moving towards out of compliance. And so I think your regulated industries are very interested in AI for some of those reasons. And the regulated industries tend to need equipment that is highly monitored. And so that would be my top end of companies and maybe regions, depending on the types of regulations that they deal with, that will move rapidly into AI. And that's often, Peter, the harder area to deploy AI, because it is regulated and because they have certain expectations. So if you can conquer the regulated industries, the rest of them aren't so hard. And now it just gets into that, what I talked about earlier, about that expertise in each of the industries to know what are the value points, what are the reasons that they would need AI, what are the types of things that we're actually focused in on from a pattern and anomaly standpoint. But the status of artificial intelligence and manufacturing, I mean, that's, manufacturing is changing super fast on us. Way back in the 80s, and I was alive then, well alive, you talked a lot about lights out manufacturing. We just technologically, we weren't capable of doing it. Culturally, organizationally, we just weren't able to do it. We weren't able to pull it off, right? We had some automation that was being built. And I spent more time, I think, taking automation apart in the 90s and early 2000s, that we tried to go to lights out manufacturing, and then we had to go something more practical. But I think today, the technology is so far outpacing us in what we can do. We can't keep up with the technology. You make an investment in technology, 3 years later, there's something doubling what you just bought 3 years before. You haven't even got a return on investment on it yet.
3 months later.
Yeah. So the technology is so outpacing manufacturing that's a challenging thing. Even if you were to build a brand new plant today, 5 years from now, you'd be questioning whether I've got the best or not. And I don't want to point certain companies out, but I think, take, for example, the company that is massively building facilities. I think Amazon struggles with that. They build brand new facilities, top of the line, advanced manufacturing or advanced packaging and shipping technology. And 5 years later, those brand new plants are challenged on whether they've really got the best technology or not. And I think that's where we are from a world perspective, is how in the world do I keep up with that technology? In the next 5 to 10 years, I go back to the same statement. It was new yesterday, it'll be new today, it'll be new tomorrow. It is hard to see an end game for AI. Everything else if you're talking about EAM systems, you're talking about ERP systems and all of that, I can talk about end game for them. But it's difficult in the AI space to say, where are we heading and where are we going to end up? Because I don't think today we have an end up kind of place for AI. I think it's just that massive and that unknown of what we can actually accomplish with it. But I think in the next 5 years, I would think we would be hard pressed to say that any organization is going to go without AI in the next 5 years. It's going to build such a distinct competitive advantage to have deployed AI that there's some industries out there that it'll be a complete transformation just because the competitiveness of few over the others in the industry is going to be that distinct. And I think that's potentially in the next 5 years.
Very good. Just as you mentioned, final question, you mentioned ERP, and a light got up in my brain. It said, IFS. We didn't talk maybe 2-3 sentences on the acquisition by IFS, which is that correct? Is an ERP company, or maybe there's a couple of other terms that do relate to IFS as well, right?
Yeah. If you ask IFS, I think they would really say they're an asset company, and people are assets obviously too. So assets and the processes and all of those things that surround it. But last year they bought a company called automl. They bought P2, which is SCADA systems. They bought Polka, which is work technology. So yes, they're an ERP company that is really digging deep into process and assets. And of course, they had their own EAM inside of their ERP. So yeah, I think the alignment, Peter, is really, really strong for a Falconry to come into an IFS and then take that technology and move it into all of their applications. I think it's going to be game changing for the industry to have an ERP, EAM, field service management company powered by asset and process AI. I think that's going to be super powerful and very competitive in the world market.
Kevin, thank you very much. As a close off, AI also in manufacturing was new yesterday, is new today, and is going to be new tomorrow. That's what that slogan is what we're going to take away from this, at least, and all the other things. Thank you very much. Listeners that want to maybe get in touch with you, they can best do that through LinkedIn, is what you suggested, Kevin Clark, KEVINCLARK. And otherwise, if you, the listener, have any question, comment, as always, please send me an email to peter@aipod.de. I'm very happy that you stayed with us so far. Looking forward to have you with us again. And Kevin, thank you very much for your time, and have a nice day.
Thank you, Peter. You as well.